Here with Tony Oakes. We're both the technical trainers for the call center for Lippert. So we'll be able to answer some questions. We're going to talk about LevelUp maintenance and SlideOur maintenance, and then we'll do some random Q&A on those subjects. So Tony and I reside in the call center for Lippert, and we train the technical representatives that are on the phone for us. This is a new program that we started this year, so we've been doing it for about 7 or 8 months. So you'll gradually see our technicians get stronger and stronger and stronger in the subjects that you call in for regarding troubleshooting on. We're going to talk about the LevelUp system, which is a pretty low maintenance system as far as what you need to do as a customer and an owner. Before I get to that, I want to start passing around a stack of offers that we have 50% and 15% off on parts. Through our call center. Not 50, it's 15. 1.5. So the LevelUp system obviously is a fully automatic hydraulic leveling system. I see a lot of it on your guys' coaches out here. How many people in the room have LevelUp on their coach? Pretty much everybody? Sweet. General feedback?
Yeah.
Good? Yeah, thumbs up? Good stuff.
Not really.
No, not really?
I noticed one of the gear particularly makes a lot of noise. And one complaint I have about it is I asked the factory about it. When you get in a situation where you've got to get one side level by itself and try to run it on manual, you can't run the individual gear off of that keypad. And he said, well, you have to get under there and shut the hydraulics off to one side, then you do one side and the other. That seems to me that's actually a way of doing business.
So his concern, yeah, and I'll repeat questions because I can tell that you guys can't hear. So his concern is that with the LevelUp system, if he wants to run it in manual mode, that he can't affect each individual jack, and he is absolutely correct. The way the LevelUp system is plumbed is that the jacks work in pairs. So we have our two front jacks plumbed to work together, and then we have our two left side jacks and our two right side jacks. Those are also plumbed to be in pairs. So when you operate the system, you will effectively be operating it in pairs. Front, and when you operate the left, it's going to operate the left rear jacks. And when you operate right, it will be the right rear jacks.
But I can't operate left and right separately without shutting off the hydraulic valve. I was over at Crossroads and I asked them this back in July. And I said, well, sometimes I need to get the right or the left side up higher and the automatic system's not doing it. How do I do it? So, well, you have to shut the valve off and run it like that.
No.
But I can't.
Under manual control, it will actually independently run
around with that.
We'll have to probably stop by. Yeah, we'll have to stop by and check out your coach.
All right.
His concern is that his won't operate left and right separately. It seems to lift everything at once. So we'll stop by and see if it's being. Does it auto level properly?
Yeah, it seems to do it. You know, okay. if it's got a fairly level space to get in the first place.
Okay.
Then, but once in a while, it'll say out of stroke.
Okay. I'll get with you after the seminar and we'll stop by and check it out.
Or something,
okay. Yeah, we can check that out.
Other than that, it seems to work fine. But when I do need it separately, I can't get it to do it.
No doubt. Okay. Yeah, we'll check it out over here.
When you're sending the front and lift it up, is the back lower or does it stay exactly where it is?
Well, the two rear jacks are, since they're operating in a pair, center and rear, as you pivot to the rear, more fluid will be pushed to the center jack. So you'll see the rears retract up and the centers extend. As long as those centers don't get to a fully extended position, then that rear jack will appear to be retracting.
Even though you're only operating in front?
Exactly.
There.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Because they're constantly bouncing each other out. So before we get too far off track, maintenance-wise on the LevelUp system, the main thing that you want to watch for is your fluid level. That is the most important thing to do. With hydraulics, very, very important that hydraulic fluid be in that reservoir because that's what we use to create that pressure necessary to lift. And also, air in a hydraulic system, you don't want that.
How often do you have to change your fluid
As far as fluid changing, I think in our manual it states, and you'll have to hold me to the manual better than what I'll remember, but I believe they say it's like a 3-year cycle to change the fluid. But usually what we recommend is just monitoring your fluid and looking in that tank to see what it looks like. If the fluid looks clear and red, or if it's a clear style fluid that the manufacturer is using, then you just want to make sure that that fluid doesn't start to look murky or milky or look like it has a lot of debris in it. So
There is no filter system on it at all.
the filters are actually in the pickup tubes built in the pump. So if there's anything in the tank, effectively it's not going to draw it in unless it's smaller than our filter. We use a pretty small microfilter on the end. So. As far as jack maintenance, the main thing that we talk about with jacks is to just make sure the jacks stay clean. I mean, obviously we're pulling these things down the road. We hit some environments where maybe a little bit of mud's kicking up, you know, road debris, rocks, dirt, sand, dust. Just make sure everything stays nice and clean. Extended stay periods in locations near coastal areas, salty air, environments like that. You want to make sure the piston rods, if they're extended down and you're leveled up, that you keep those wiped down occasionally. We like to say wipe them down like once every couple of weeks just to make sure that it's not holding any residual salty residue or anything of that sort that will hit that cylinder out. Because as that cylinder moves in and out of the seals inside of that, the main body of the jack, it could act as an abrasive substance and cut seals and start a leak. So very important to stay on top of that kind of stuff.
Just a suggestion for the jack rod. For those people that aren't necessarily into guns, you can pick up silicone gun cloths, dirt cheap, and it makes a great wipe down.
Not a bad idea. A lot of people like to wipe their jack legs down with a rag that they'll keep in maybe like an old ice cream container or something with some hydraulic fluid on it as well, which acts as a great wipe down substance. So that way you're wiping it down with the same thing that essentially the jack's being exposed to anyways. Main thing you want to do is obviously just make sure anything that you use to wipe down your jack legs does not contain anything that could be abrasive or corrosive to the rubber seals in that jack.
So
obviously we don't want those to deteriorate.
spraying with water, not a good idea?
Not a bad idea. You just want to make sure it's actually cleaned off because it's going to be exposed to rain and water anyways. Just make sure they stay clean. That's the main thing. So tank is very important. And then obviously our battery voltage is very, very important for a hydraulic system. It's going to be under a pretty heavy load when it's doing lifting. So battery voltage is very important. We get a lot of questions about battery voltage. Always monitor your battery voltage when the unit's unplugged. And I say that because when you're plugged into your converter or into shore power, you're going to be getting a little bit of a trickle charge. It may give you a feeling that you do have very good battery voltage when indeed your core battery voltage may be dropping low during operation. So having battery health checked, just like you would in your automobile. Same type of situation. Anybody have any questions about LevelUp maintenance?
What about popping at night? Like if it cools down at night, jacks will pop? Or...
Popping at night. Have you guys introduced any stiction fluid into it, anti-stiction fluid?
No.
Okay. We have a technical information sheet on popping that could occur. Popping can occur from a inconsistency in fluid types. So there is a stabilizer that you can actually buy to address that. You put it right in your tank, cycle your jacks up and down a few times, and it will usually incorporate into your fluid and assist with that noise. It'll slowly dissipate away.
I had that done, and they used the Torco product, and it still exists. I still have that walking around in the coach, you still get that popping sound.
Walking around in the coach would be more of a sign of air. So is it only when you're walking, or is it when you're just sitting still? Can you, I mean...
Basically when we're moving around.
Okay. If it's when you're moving around, we would have to make sure that you don't have any air in your system. So cycling your jacks to a full extend and a full retracted position every once in a while may be good to force any air back to our tank. We have a self-purging system. So it will bring any air back to that tank and let it dissipate into that fluid.
So how do you do full extension?
In a single set. So you can do the front, you can do the left side, right side. So
On that same note, how safe is it to take the wheels completely off the ground?
well, I mean, as far as safe, it's never safe to take the wheels off the ground with just the jack alone. So obviously, anytime wheels are going to be off the ground, they need to be supported by an auxiliary device, just the same way as if you were to work on your car. Never work underneath the car, obviously, with just a hydraulic jack. You'd always want to have a jack stand or something to support yourself as well. Yeah, in the back. Yep.
Jacks are down, everything shut off, turn your system on, says jacks off.
Pressure switch. Pressure switch. The unit is equipped with a retract side pressure switch. It is what determines whether or not the jacks are up or jacks are down. So I would be checking the pressure switch connection.
Where is that located?
It's located by the pump. It's a blue anodized piece, looks like blue and gold with a yellow and a black wire coming off of it. It's a waterproof Deutsch connector on it. So if you ever run into something like that, check that connection, make sure it's nice and clean, and then everything's good to go on it. Because that pressure switch is basically very black and white. It sees pressure and it breaks the connection, and it says ready jacks up. So that's how it knows when there's retract pressure on it. It breaks that continuity in that signal, and you're left with a signal that says ready jacks up or ready jacks down, depending on what its state is.
I don't have a huge complaint about the auto leveling, but it's relatively level, but it's always off to one side. You know, you can tell this, you open a shower door and it just swings open and it'll hang out there. Can this be calibrated?
Well,
Or
as far as your reference points for level, I mean, we don't have the ability to level every single individual piece inside your coach. So we do get some folks that say, well, my shower door swings or my bathroom door swings or my countertops are on level. We can't account for that. So usually what we say is reference your level point to where it makes you happy. We have a lot of cooks that will call in and say, I need to make sure that the eggs in the pan are not shifted to one side of the pan. That's their reference point. If you do a lot of cooking, you can level your coach or your LevelUp system to the stovetop. You can level it up to your floor, you can level it up to your manually, and then you can actually set it. The 0 point for the LevelUp system is a programmed feature, so you as the user can reprogram that to what you'd like.
Thank you.
Available in the manual on
We
our
didn't
website.
get any documentation with our system.
And that brings up a great point. The one thing that you guys have the power of doing is going to and visiting our website, which is lci1.com. That's the digit 1. The other thing we have, how many people here have smartphones? Fantastic. Android and Apple, we offer an application called My LCI. If you go into the App Store or into the Google Play Store, search for Lippert components, and you will see that we have an application called My LCI. There you go. He's got it up on his phone right now. It is a fantastic app. It gives you quick access to all the documentation that you may need. All your owner's manuals on Lippert products, troubleshooting documents, parts, all kinds of great stuff on there.
Videos too?
Absolutely, quick access to video. So the cool thing is it stays stationary. So if you're in, for instance, looking at LevelUp product and you want to know about support documentation for the LevelUp product, it'll stay in that same category. On that same screen, we will offer you a link to videos, technical information documents, manuals. It's very convenient. Very, very convenient. I suggest everybody to download it at some point when you get a chance.
Technical question. I bring on the LevelUp, take off, cut everything off. I'm going down the road. Is there any danger whatsoever of them jacks coming down?
The only way that you would ever have a jack drift down, as we would call it, mechanically we would hope that electrically you can't access that pump and travel.
Sure.
I mean, obviously anything can happen, but we don't account for that kind of stuff. But the main thing would be, in a hydraulic system, we use a double-acting piston. So the only way a jack would ever come down, it would never usually come down anywhere near to the ground. It would usually relieve itself if it has an internal failure, which is very, very rare scenario. But if you were to run into something like that and you notice that jacks are moving, you would notice that as well, though, at a stationary position. Your system would lose altitude. It would lose its level position over a day's time or possibly a week. So.
Would that be true if you had a hose failure or something or other?
Absolutely. I mean, hose failures, there's always a possibility. The hose is a part of our system. It is holding pressure along with the jack. So depending on where that hose would fail, you could essentially have a jack more or less like in a stationary position. You could lose altitude. Usually it's not going to allow the jack to drop on its own because it does take some pressure to push that jack down.
So if you have a hose break, it won't go to the ground.
As far as if we're sitting like this coach next to us here,
Yeah.
If you had a hose break, it will go down, but it's a restricted system, so it will go down slowly. We actually restrict the system internally so that in a catastrophic failure, it would slowly drop down, so it wouldn't come crashing down.
Several times my front jacks, extending my front jacks, open my slides. Open my slides all the way.
You have a valve that's not blocking, or you have a valve that's getting jammed with something.
Then it's healed itself.
What's that?
It healed itself.
You had debris in it.
I did the same thing.
You had debris lodging in your valve. The system, the way I like to describe the LevelUp system that makes a better understanding for it. How many people, well, I know that we're all RVers, obviously, but as far as at home, sprinkling systems. Anybody have a sprinkling system? So it's very similar to a sprinkling system. When you turn it on, you have the option of watering the bushes and not the backyard, right? That's done by a valve. There's something that's actually saying, I don't want water back here, I want it over here. So in your situations, you have the same thing going on. You have a valve saying, I don't want fluid to my slide outs, I want it to the LevelUp system. So we open that valve, we send fluid to it. So if that slide room valve has been blocked by a piece of debris or partially held open, fluid will flow to both scenarios.
Fixing that, what I did is I retracted my jack all the way off front and back. I retracted everything up, extended back down, and whatever reason I cleared, whatever it is, and then slide started working.
Upon retract, I mean, the system is pretty much open to each other. So it all uses the same pump. Your slide outs and your LevelUp system are going to share the same pump, especially obviously in a hydraulic scenario like this. So that fluid on the retract side is all joined together. We only valve on the extend side. So absolutely possible for this to happen. No doubt about it.
Now what? I mean, we're going to experience this again?
I mean, as far as the debris, this is a situation where you may want to look at your tank and make sure that your fluid's in good condition. This is a great scenario for maintenance-wise to pop the cap on that tank, shine a flashlight in there, and make sure there's no debris in there. In the back.
What did you do? I saw a in Arizona. I wet my systems up all the time before bringing home. When he started bringing up those back floor, and it stopped about halfway up. He kind of decided that it would go down, it would go up. What do you do in that type of situation?
Check your fluid level. Check your fluid level. Yeah, no doubt about it. Again, if you don't have enough fluid in your tank to create that pressure to keep pulling those jacks up, then you would run into a situation where the jacks would stop moving. Obviously, if the pump is still running and there's no movement, the first place I would go to look is the fluid level. No, that pump is generating quite a bit of pressure. It will not care about a little bit of dirt on the cylinder. I mean, it's definitely not something I'm going to advise that we want to do, but no, it's not going to stop it, I can tell you that much.
If the pump fails, it could be the fuse.
Absolutely.
A little 10-amp fuse.
Absolutely, yep.
Where's the fuse on that pump?
Hold on.
So I do like an auto retract after I'm hooked up in the truck. We shut off bead like it's done. The front jacks could be down about that far. Turn the unit back on. It says jacks down. It auto retract again. And pull them up to the last 2 or 3 inches.
And then it says jacks up?
Done about probably 3 or 4 times.
If that's the case, again, that's a situation where the system, when you press auto retract, the system immediately starts looking at the pressure switch and it just basically sits there and it stares at it and says, you tell me when to stop. So as soon as that jack pulls up or jacks pull up and create the pressure necessary to trip that pressure switch, that's when it shuts off and it says ready jacks up. So if it's getting to that point early, but not saying ready jacks up, I would say you're tripping a thermal breaker and it's resetting itself. How's your battery voltage? 12.6. I mean, if you check battery health, I mean, obviously, the main thing I talk about with battery health is, it's a perfect scenario, and it's probably something you want to have done. My automobile battery. You know, winter time comes around, I've got 12.6 volts, I go to crank it, and it takes a little bit of time to get it going. Cold cranking amps, obviously the cold kicks in. Definitely the time that starts revealing if you have any kind of battery health issues. So taking your batteries into like an AutoZone or Advanced Auto Parts and having them do a quick health check on the battery will let you know the state of that battery. We get a lot of calls into Lippert every day. We take upwards of 18 to 1900 calls a day. And a lot of them do revolve around battery voltage and possible pump, what may be or may feel like a pump issue. When in all reality, it ends up being a battery situation. So it's a good thing to have your battery health checked. People say, it's a brand new battery though, Mike. I don't understand how that can happen. It's a brand new battery, it could still have an issue. It absolutely could have a dead cell in it.
Over the winter, our dealers suggested that we fully extend, fully retract all the jacks once a month, and of course lube them. That raises the question of how long do you recommend you leave the jacks out without doing that kind of cycle?
I guess in that kind of situation, if you have the ability to cycle your jacks, it's all the better. Absolutely, one of those things where it's kind of a catch-22 for me to answer it and say, nah, you don't have to worry about that. It's definitely something that you would want to worry about. It's no different than having an old classic car and wanting to kind of keep the tires rotated or moved in a situation to keep them from flattening out. I mean, jacks to me are no different. If you're going to leave them down for an extended stay and you have access to that coach, run in there and just give a few inch cycle up and down. You don't have to do a full retraction, a full extend. You can give them a cycle though. It doesn't hurt anything at all. I want to answer the question though about the fuse. I want to make sure I answer that. So the LevelUp controller is a 10 amp fused wire. It's a red wire up near your controller. So on the front end of your coach up by your pin box, you'll open up that front compartment. Up on the ceiling, you'll notice the LevelUp controller. Okay. Out of that controller, there are 2 ports that have a red wire. Those join together and will run to a 10 amp inline fuse. If that fuse is blown, you have no LevelUp touchpad. It will not turn on. Okay? Now, if you have LevelUp power, your touchpad turns on, but you get no activity from your pump, that's protected by a circuit breaker. Okay? So the circuit breaker, sometimes those are thermal reset breakers, and sometimes they're manual reset breakers. So that's kind of up to the manufacturer, but usually you can locate those by following that main battery line from the pump towards the battery. It's usually a pretty much direct connect, and your circuit protection device is going to be near the battery end of it.
Are you saying that fuse is in the junction box there on the pin box?
It'll be in line on the harness, on that red wire.
Inside the generator compartment.
Yep.
It's in the way when you open your door. It's right there, in the way, hanging in the way, at least in mine. And it's got a cap on it. It's got a rubber cap on it.
We go south for the winter, and it might be November, maybe before we leave, be cold.
Close to the front.
You try and operate the jack system, and that fuse fails. I've had maybe replace it 3 times.
The 10 amp fuse?
Yep. I've had to replace it at least 3 times just to get the jack.
Do you know where it's getting its power from, where that wire is going to, like its source? Maybe something we need to look at. Is your coach obviously here?
Yeah.
We can stop by and check that out. Before, the ones that we want to check out, get with Tony and I before we break here, and we'll get your site number and come over and meet you. Check it out.
I was wondering, a lot of times, hydraulics like that, they'll put a tank or an immersion heater in there, to keep the oil.
As far as the fluid, I mean, what kind of temperatures are you experiencing? When we're talking extreme temperatures like northern Canada.
I'm talking about
like
Michigan.
northern
I'm talking
Michigan.
Lower Michigan,
Yeah.
like 10 degrees.
Yeah, I mean like here. I mean here it gets pretty cold as well. I mean we had a couple winters, last couple of winters have been pretty hairy. So I mean as far as fluid is concerned, if you're consistently in cold weather applications, and I'm talking consistently, we do have fluid recommendation charts available. You can access them through the MyLCI application, or you can access them on our website, lci1.com. That can show you that you can actually change the fluid style to something that would accommodate your climate. So if you're in a consistently cold climate, you can actually add a thinner fluid in. But
if you're not in a consistently cold climate, you're leaving the cold climate going to a warm climate.
yeah, exactly. And that's where you kind of have to make that decision. If you're going to be in a cold climate consistently kind of moving back and forth between the two, you're going to want to stay middle ground, which is probably the fluid that was put in by the manufacturer, which is I believe Redwood uses an HEF style fluid, Dextron 3 or Mercon 5 style. So,
Can I ask you a quick question? Back to the popping sound, can that cause any damage?
no, absolutely not.
That's what he said.
Nope. No, I'm sorry.
Guys are never right.
No, popping noises from jacks is actually happening from the fluid inside. Basically, a pad of foam is bursting into smaller pads of foam. So it's just a popping noise. It's a reaction to the fluid. So no damage can occur.
It's not just going to fall down.
No. Absolutely not. No, it's just a noise.
It's a noise.
Strictly a noise, yeah.
You hear that and you're like, okay.
No, I've heard it before. Absolutely. I know exactly what you're talking about.
What causes the system when you go to hook back up and you can hit the left and right button at the same time?
Fantastic.
It doesn't go back up.
The number one call we get in our call center, right there. His question is, what happens when you go to press the left and right button to do the return to pin height feature, and it says feature disabled, right? What causes that? People call in all the time and they go, I don't know what's going on, I think I have an error, there's something wrong with my system. You do not have an error with your system, you do not have an issue with your system. Basically what we're doing there is we are preventing that unit from dropping the nose, okay? So the scenario is, you let drop your landing gear and you're going to release from your truck, we want that nose before you hit auto level to be in a positive position, above zero, above level. Okay? If it is at or below, feature disabled. We will not drop the nose to pin height. We will raise it to pin height. Okay? So if you get a feature disabled, it doesn't mean that you did anything wrong. It just means that you're not going to be able to use that feature. You'll have to do it manually.
How do you set pin height?
What's that?
How do you set pin height? So before you disconnect, you have to do something and say,
No, as soon as you hit auto level, if your nose is in a positive position, it records that position automatically. It's something that happens behind the scenes, so you either get it or you don't, based on where you started.
yeah, got it.
Does that make sense for everybody?
So if you think you are close to level, can you go ahead and raise it before you hit the auto level?
Absolutely.
And do it?
Yep. Yep. We'll go here. I know that your hand was up.
So if I do an auto level and it comes up and it's, return pin height, and it comes up short,
It's going to get close. It's a feeling. It's a
about 6
sensation.
inches off.
Six inches off when you do a return to pin height?
Yeah.
That's close enough.
Guys, 6 inches.
So I go into this angle and I just raise the When I do that, the pin moves laterally about 2 inches, invariably. So the jacks are apparently moving, instead of in tandem now, they shift.
So, I guess that would depend on your scenario. Have you retracted your rear jacks? Have you? So when you retract your rear jacks, basically we've got to remember how this system's operating. The leveling is done front to back by the front landing gear. Your left to right is done solely by the 4 rear jacks. So as soon as you release your 4 rear jacks from the ground, your landing gear now are just a set that are going to adjust depending on how the unit's sitting, right? How you're loaded, where your weight's at on your coach. If you have a lot of slides on one side, it may want to naturally sit to one side, thus the leveling system that comes down the rear and levels it back out. So as soon as you have those out of the equation, absolutely, the coach could shift to one side because those legs work in a pair to lift only. Okay? Does that clarify it for you, I guess, a little bit? I still would like to check it out. I mean, let me know your site number. I'd like to see that if it's actually 6 inches off. I'd like to see what's going on there, no doubt about it. Yeah, no doubt.
When I'm done leveling sometime or retracting and I'm turning the unit off, it says system aborted, check components.
Yeah, function aborted.
It functions.
Check wiring.
And then you've got to hit enter to acknowledge it, and then you can turn it off.
So function aborted, his question is, or his statement is, sometimes when he levels or auto retracts, he'll get a function aborted check components on his screen, and you have to press enter to acknowledge. First thing, anytime you get an error or a statement by our system, you have to clear it by using the enter button. You have to acknowledge it and say, yes, I'm aware, thank you for telling me, I'll get it figured out. His situation is function aborted. So as soon as you do an auto sequence, whether that's auto level or auto retract, your touchpad becomes a panic stop. So if for some reason you see that, oh man, I forgot to get my bike out from underneath the front, or something's going on that, oh, I forgot to move this out of the way, you can smack any button on that panel and it becomes a panic stop and it says function aborted. So that will happen during auto level. So if you accidentally hit that button twice, function aborted.
This is when I'm done and I'm turning it, it'll say level success, success, and I go to turn it off and I get that reading.
It's still in that auto level process then, so you just have to wait for it to say ready jacks up or level jacks down or whatever its statement's going to be. You're just hitting it too soon while it still thinks it's in an auto process. All right. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's an
if
easy
you
fix.
just,
Yeah.
if you just wait.
This gentleman, hold on.
The jacks, they have to be replaced.
We do not offer rebuild kits for our jacks. Once we get into those jacks, we feel that's a little too invasive, and if it was to be done incorrectly, you could have more of an issue than what any of us would like to deal with, so we require a replacement.
But they can be rebuilt.
By a hydraulic shop, I'm sure. There's nothing inside of the jack that's outside of a standard seal type, so I'm sure they can be rebuilt. We just don't offer it at Lippert. So
I had one rebuilt. And you all
absolutely.
you told me you couldn't rebuild them.
We don't rebuild them. Yeah.
Hydraulic shoppers.
Yeah, hydraulic shops can rebuild slide out pistons. I mean, it's a hydraulic shop. We don't do anything outside the ordinary with our system. So I heard auto level slides in or out. How does everybody do it here? Slides in. Great decision. Slides in. We usually like to refer to the manual. So refer. Tony presses on this a lot. Tony, you answer this question.
No, this is an easy one, honestly. We don't build the other part of the coach, so we build the leveling system. So we move the other part of the coach. So we recommend whatever the OEM recommends. They built the other 99% of the coach. They know where the structure is. They know where the strength is in their coach. So they recommend the slides in. Everyone does it with the slides in. Have you read that somewhere? Or is that tribal knowledge? You just do that out of habit? I'm just asking, Has anyone read the manual? I would have said, yeah. There we go! Exactly. No.
There's a manual?
No, there is a manual. It's somewhere, trust me. You got all this knowledge behind us in the blue shirts. There is a manual somewhere. With that, right. You can do it either way. You got to look at it this way. Recommend with the slides in. The reason is get everything level. Now you push 1,500 pounds out, 2 inches, 24 inches. You got the Flintstone look going on there. You may need to use that manual mode and re-level the coach. All right. So it can work either way. We recommend it with it in. That is our standard answer to recommend with it in, and that's why. Because you can move slides as the slides get bigger, as the travel gets longer. You're going to have that look. Especially on, I see motorized around here, same thing with them. Slides in. It's all per the manufacturer of the coach is what we recommend. Because each floor plan is different, each model is different, each Redwood might be different because you have a lot of different floor plans around here. So really specific to the OEM. They build a lot of the coach. So
he's not just a pretty face.
We live on a slanty driveway, and we like to bring our coach home to load it. And you kind of have to put slides out in order to load it, but the manual says not to if you're not level. Is that
we like
something we shouldn't do, even just for a few minutes to load
Well,
it?
the reason behind that is when you have the slides are in, you have a good level base, the opening is nice and square because you leveled up the coach. Now you push the room out of a nice square opening. When you don't level and you shove that room out, we can't guarantee the opening is going to be square for it to go out. It could get some rubbing. You could get some unnatural wear on it. So, yeah, you got to be careful when doing that.
Can you put it out just a little bit?
Well, if you got to squeeze in there, yes, you can. I mean, I'm sure it's done.
Are you in a scenario where you can't auto level, like it's too extreme of an angle? Do you have the ability to at least manually run your jacks down? Because even if you could set a foundation, you could drop your rear jacks down at least to set a foundation. You wouldn't necessarily have to go through a full auto level, but you could go into a manual mode. Our manual mode is very versatile.
Attach to the truck. You can
Yeah.
You know what the
We're in
truck
a
is?
position where we got to pull up a driveway, and then immediately it goes down this way.
Gotcha.
So the truck's got to go this way, and the trailer's like this.
Yeah.
So
I got a contractor I'll hook you up with. No, with that scenario, you're probably okay to move it out 12 inches, load your stuff in, and then put it back in. As long as you're not fully stroking that room out, the less you can move it, the better off you are in that scenario. Just because we can't guarantee the opening. Yeah.
Yeah. Use your best. Use your own discretion. Obviously, you know, you guys have put a lot of time and money into these products, so make sure that everything you do, you know, is based upon the fact that you've kind of done a little bit of research on it and you feel that it's safe and comfortable.
We have the same situation. We live on a hill, so our driveway is slanted quite a bit. So when we level, it always takes the coach off its wheel. So what does that do to the jacks?
If it was me, I would be driving up on some blocks to prevent those wheels from not being off the ground.
Like right now, our wheels are off the ground in the site where we're at.
What's the site like? Because these are all pretty.
Seems pretty flat.
We'll have to stop by your coach then too, because they should. I mean, unless there's a clear reason why, I would like to look and watch your unit do an auto level sequence. Auto level is going to happen generally with as little movement as possible. It's going to ground all the jacks and definitely get them on the ground to get that firm foundation. But as far as going upwards, we're going to try to keep that to a minimum. So if you find it doing an excessively long leveling sequence, then you're either on a questionable piece of terrain, or possibly maybe something's happening that that Tony and I can take a look at and see what's going on.
Also, what happens when we're doing the weight thing?
Yeah.
I went out last night to get the information off the tires. I couldn't quite see it, and I touched the tire, and the tire went whoop, it started rolling.
So it's barely off the ground?
Oh, it's probably off an inch.
Yeah? And the coach's level? Have you checked it with a bubble level? Does it feel good?
No.
You could just have an error at 0 point. Your reference could be just a little bit off.
109.
Just let me know before we all wrap up here. I know everybody's smelling the food the same way we are, so. Back to the yellow.
Manual says don't use the jacks to change your tires. Are you really saying don't crawl under there until you put some additional support on there? Or are you just
Like I
saying
said, yeah, you gotta treat this situation just like somebody that, so if you go to Napa Auto Parts and you buy a floor jack, that floor jack is gonna say, don't use this to lift the vehicle off the ground. Because what you're using that jack for is to do the lifting, but the supporting needs to be done by something else. If that jack failed, you know, I wouldn't want to be a part of it. Obviously, you wouldn't either. You know, it's
you can put a jack under.
you could put a support underneath it. Absolutely. I can tell you this much: your LevelUp system, your front jacks are rated at a 14,000 pound lifting capacity per jack. And then you get to the rears and they're 8,000 pound per jack. So you're talking about a 60,000 pound lifting capacity on the system. I think we're okay on that. We worry about safety. This is a big deal. You know, so again, use your discretion and be safe. Number one overall, all the time. Shocking tires, stuff like that.
So what you're saying about maybe try to get the trailer, like drive it up on the boards, really wouldn't be too bad, just lift it up and then put the boards
Absolutely. We
slide
have
the boards and then do your auto.
We have customers that do that, yes.
Yeah.
They will lift it up, slide some boards under, drop it down.
Yeah.
That way when you auto level, it's compensated for that couple inches or an inch maybe that your tires are off the ground.
But then you're not trying to get the trailer exactly on those boards.
Because
That's hard to do.
yeah, again, we're stabilizing the system, we're leveling it, but we're not suspending everything off the ground. So we're still using those tires to make sure that we've got a firm foundation as well.
Back to where he was talking about, you level up because you're on an uneven surface and take the tires off the ground. It happened to be here recently, and I was only, my tires were only off the ground about an inch. So I went to manual mode and raised that side up more, slid my tube 8 underneath.
Dropped it down.
Dropped back down, but then I went back to auto level. When it auto leveled again, it took my tires on that same side back up off my 2.8. I was totally baffled after that.
Well, as far as
level the first time.
And did you retract your jacks and start all over again?
No.
Okay, so that's the main thing. You got to retract your jacks. Every time we level, we do a grounding sequence. So we're going to go down, and essentially what a grounding sequence is, and Tony really brings a good light to this because he comes from power gear, which they do a lot of motorized leveling. The main thing about a grounding sequence is we don't have any sensors that say the jack has hit the ground. We use our motion sensor that's doing the same job to do the auto level process to say the coach just moved, the jack is grounded. So we have to do that process. So if you hit auto level with the jacks grounded, it does it again, and it lifts high, and then it levels again. So always starting with your jacks retracted is very, very important to establish the grounding and then do the leveling in as little movement as possible. So I hope that makes sense. It looks like that, yeah.
Using blocks underneath will make any difference?
Blocking, not a bad thing. We see a lot of customers use blocking. Excessive blocking is the part where I kind of start to get worried because, again, you know, if you got your jack legs stacked on a bunch of Jenga blocks, you know, that's not exactly stable. I don't think you're going to like the feeling of it. In some situations, absolutely necessary because of the fact that you want to try to retain as much of that jack leg retracted as possible. We just don't, I don't like to see more than, 5 to 6 inches of blocking is even kind of starting to be questionable to me. You know, if you're in that kind of a scenario, you may want to double think where you're parking. So.
In a scenario where I can't retract my jacks, I'm sitting somewhere, something is broken.
Yep.
Slide outs are out. I need to leave.
Yes.
What can you do to get that thing back on the road?
All right, so his question is basically on a manual override. So we have, let's say, a power failure. We have lost the ability to power that hydraulic pump. We have lost the ability to generate pressure to move these jacks. What do you do? Right? So what we've got is even a possibility of a motor that suffered some kind of a failure and the motor will not turn by power. What we have on the back end of that motor, so on your pump assembly, you'll see the cylinder-shaped motor. On the back end of that motor is a little sticker. If you peel that sticker off, it is a 1/4-inch hex head drive, which is just the back side of a standard screwdriver bit. Very convenient. A lot of people don't know that, but you just take a Phillips head screwdriver bit and a drill, flip it around, stick it right into the end of that pump. And we use a bi-directional pump, so that motor spins one way to extend and one way to retract. So you'll use your drill, that bit in the back end of the motor, and you're going to turn that motor. Now, in order to make the fluid flow to a correct direction, right, to our correct path, we've got to open up that valve. Okay? So if we want to move to front landing gear, we need to access that front landing gear valve, which is usually located in your front landing gear, and you're going to open it. You're going to manually open that valve. I can't say it's like a water spigot. It's going to use a 5/32 Allen wrench. So again, minimal tools here. 5/32 Allen wrench, open that valve up, and you'll be able to actually flow fluid to those jacks now. So then you go back to your drill and run that pump. One way is going to extend, one way is going to retract, and obviously fluid is absolutely important still. So don't jump over the fact that if you have low fluid, it could be the cause of your issue to begin with. So make sure you got fluid in there. A lot of our techs get stumped on things like that on the phones because we can't see it. So they fail to ask that question, what's your fluid level? And they're running around like a chicken with their head cut off with you trying to figure out what's going on when really it's just a matter of you don't have any fluid to move anything. Okay?
And just don't check your fluid with your slides out and your...
And absolutely. So that's another good point there. So basically the question in that case would be, when do you check your fluid? When do you check your fluid level? What's the best time to do it? It's with everything retracted. That's when we see the highest fluid or the max fluid level in that tank. We like to say, if you don't have a marking on it that says fill line, we like to say get it up to about 1/4 to 1/2 inch from the top of that fill cap. So pretty high, pretty much filled up tank.
How did you get the slides in?
The slides are going to be on a valve as well. So you'll have a landing gear valve, you'll have a slide valve, and then you'll have a rear jack, left side or driver side or passenger side, right side valve as well.
Where are they located?
They're located by the pump.
Okay.
Absolutely by the pump. Now the front landing gear, like I said, that valve is going to be in one of those 2 legs.
Are they marked? Which ones they are?
That all depends on the manufacturer. Some manufacturers actually do put a labeling system on the manifold block by those valves that say, you know, maybe slide out would be SO, and then rear jacks would be, you know, road side or driver side. So
can you possibly hold the retract button inside and open that valve?
Absolutely. If you have a pump that's working, you can absolutely do that. But then I would question, you know, if you got the pump running off the slide.
If the pump isn't working, and
you can still energize that valve
with the screw, with the drill.
Yep.
Have somebody hold that switch.
Yep. You can definitely try it that way because you could be energizing the valve to open it. So what he's talking about is, could you use the switch still if you had a motor failure on your pump? Could you use the switch to energize that valve as opposed to manually opening it and have somebody run the drill? Absolutely. You got a great mind.
You mean the switch on the
happened.
It happened, but yeah.
Not to me, but to somebody else.
Yeah, I may have been the one helping him.
And
that's the way I work. I'm like, I'm going to make this as easy as possible.
He's the one that told me what to do.
Very cool.
Nobody's ever told me about that fitting on the top of that motor.
Yeah.
They all say you just get a wrench and you can crank the slides in.
No, that's the tough way to do it. No, if you'd like, again, if I can walk away from this scenario, if you guys can walk away from this seminar with anything, please get the app or please visit our website and download yourself a manual. Because the LevelUp manual is very, very descriptive as far as that manual override process. You know, for those situations, it also walks through some maintenance tips, stuff like that that you guys can actually have to keep. So very good. Like I said, you know, if you want to use the smartphone app, then you have it at your convenience at all times. You don't have to worry about losing your paper copy or, you know, being outdated. You know, if we update that manual, it's going to update on that app as well. So, anybody have any other questions?
That switch he was talking about, is that on the keypad?
No, he's actually just talking about his manual slide-out switch.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, just a manual
inside
slide-out
the
switch.
coach in the cabin.
Yep.
Oh, all right.
You gotta have that activated. Somebody's gotta hold that while the other person is working the drill.
Lubricating a slide mechanism? I believe in our manual there is a full printout of the through frame slide out. You'd be referring to a through frame slide? I mean, obviously Redwood's use through frame slide outs that Lippert provides. We also have some in-wall slides mixed in there. You'll see in this unit right here, the slide and slide. That's an in-wall mechanism. In-wall mechanisms, we don't require any lubrication. We don't advise of any lubrication. As far as through frame slides, though, those are mechanisms that have gear packs with bronze bushings, oil impregnated. We recommend like a Teflon lubricant, something non-sticky, right? We don't want dirt collecting on it because it's obviously underneath your coach. We don't want that thing just collecting a bunch of dirt and creating an issue. So yes, we do have stuff. Again, my LCI app or our website, we have all that documentation that you can get to and see all those maintenance procedures for each product. We got about 8 minutes still, unless you guys are that hungry and I can I can step aside. I don't want to get trampled.
I'm looking for the, and I've tried to order from Camping World a few times and it's never worked out, but the rear stabilizing, electrical stabilizing jacks.
You like Jack?
How would I get hold of them? Call us, they have no stock, so you got to order them. No, it's on back.
Oh, call us. We have
Okay.
We have rear electric stabilizing jack, yeah. We absolutely have. No doubt about it. Give us a call at the parts.
There's a part, on that app on the website, there's also a parts store.
The problem is I'm in Canada, so the freight would probably charge me more than the parts would.
Now's the best time.
I know, if I can get it before I go back,
Yeah.
that would be great.
Yeah, absolutely. Give us a call. You can
We
come
do
back
that
up
sometime
sometime
next couple days or something, or?
Yeah, you could probably.
We're leaving Tuesday, but if I can do something Monday or something, that would be
If you
fantastic.
call today, you can go pick one up today. We have a 270,000 square foot warehouse. I think we have.
Talk to you.
And you can use your 15% off.
Better.
15. 15.
I said 50.
Who was that guy? Let's get him.
This has the 2 new Lippert motors for my bedroom slide, and basically they got corroded and froze up. One of them did, but I had to get both. Where would the moisture come from to that would do that? That's only 2012, so it's not that old.
2012. I'd almost like to see the style of motor that was removed from your coach.
Got him.
Do you?
I brought him. I'll bring him over.
I'll come see it. I'll come see it.
I'll just bring him
At
over.
least then I can give you an idea of what you may have encountered there.
Yeah, I just thought it was strange that moisture could do that.
Yeah, because those, you know, you see the seals. I mean, we're going to protect as much as we can. We're not going to be able to block everything, obviously, and you know, it's sometimes it happens. But I'll come over, check it out.
Yeah, you can have them for your museum.
Oh, I've got a museum.
So a lot of us with the rear living room.
Yeah.
The rear jacks are right behind the rear axle, so we quite a bit of shaking.
Okay.
Did another set of jacks be added?
Okay, so this is a good question. We get a lot of this style of question through our phone system, which is, I don't like the placement of my jacks, I want to move them farther back, right? I mean, that's a basic breakdown. What we do with this LevelUp system, we have to remember that what happens when you go into a parking lot that dips down? You almost scrape your rear bumper, right?
Oh, you do
got to
strike your
worry
rear
about
bumper.
that big time with these jacks, because we need these jacks to not only be able to lift this unit and have enough stroke to do so, but we got to make sure that we are not in a drag hazard. So moving the jacks farther back is going to leave the plane that we basically look for, which is a fixed point from the lowest point of rear bumper down to the bottom of your tire scrub. If that jack is to drop below that imaginary plane, it's a drag hazard. So that's where we end up with jack placements, and that's why we put them where we are. We look for that jack to be 8 to 10 inches from the ground at all times. So
that's why you sell electric stabilizing extra.
Rear stabilizers can go in there as well. Yeah, we see a lot of people that do say, you know what, I love the system, it does everything I want, I just want a little more stabilization, I'll throw a rear stabilizer jack on the back as well. So, main thing to remember though, don't lift.
No.
Don't lift, just contact. Yep.
I don't know if somebody's already asked this or not, but I've noticed on the passenger side, I haven't looked on the other side, but the jack that's behind the axle, it's actually tilted out, where the others appear to be completely vertical.
We do have some jack mounts that are actually positioned to a 1-degree tilt to enhance the stable.
Okay.
So instead of having a kind of straight up and down sway point, you'll see that some of our jacks are actually positioned out to prevent that sway. So don't be alarmed unless you look up under there and you see that it clearly shouldn't be that way, and you'll know just by looking over at it. Yeah. Yeah. But normally, yeah, that totally should be the case, absolutely. We have brackets that are actually made that way. Yep. Well, if everybody feels pretty comfortable, I appreciate you having us. Obviously, you know, fantastic. You guys are Redwood customers. Redwood's a great customer of ours, so we appreciate you guys having us. Thanks for the hospitality. Those that would like us to stop by and check your coach, ooh, nice. Please get with us and give us your site numbers, and we'll try to meet you here within the next hour or half an hour, and we'll make our way around the campground. So, thank you guys.
Hello, how's everybody doing? Good. Good. This is not going to be question and answers. Okay? I wanted to welcome you. We'll do that after we make sure you're fed, though. My name is Jim Lazzarino. I'm General Manager of Redwood, and from the Redwood family, we wanted to thank you for being part of our family and supporting the brand, and we want you to know how much we appreciate you. I think if I can grab him here, I'd like to introduce you to our president of the company, Andy Crichton, because he wants to welcome you before we start. Andy Crichton.
Not that short. We're eating, right?
We're going to eat.
So I'll say welcome and we'll say a prayer, we'll eat, and then we'll talk. Deal? Okay. I always wing these, so let's bow our heads real quick. Lord, it's a prayer I'm going to say that I say in front of the plants. Sometimes we forget how lucky we are. And amongst all of the stresses and everything that happens, we kind of lose sight of that you've blessed us and you've given us great opportunities to enjoy this wonderful planet that you've given us. We want to make sure that we keep that spirit of gratitude and thankfulness in our hearts. We especially want to say thank you for the safety and getting everybody here, the chance for us to be together. We want to ask you to bless the hands that prepare the food. We want to ask you to bless the hands of the people that build these great products. We want to ask you to keep us safe on the road and make sure we're carrying out our days in ways that would honor you. Keep us safe. In your name we pray. Amen. Amen.